my name is Michaela and I decided to do my zoo project at the Como Zoo, and I'm going to focus on the large cats exhibit. Right now I'm just going to talk about the tigers, lions, and the snow leopard. So for the snow leopard, since they're not necessarily the biggest cats, their enclosure isn't as big as, let's say, the tiger's enclosure. But I think for the size that the snow leopard is, the enclosure is very well fitted. There's lots of climbing material for the snow leopard, and there's toys, and it's outdoors. And snow leopards, they like the cold more than like the hot savanna, as to oppose how the lions like. So overall, the snow leopard has a lot of great qualities for their animal welfare. For the tiger, their enclosure is extremely spacious. There's lots of trees, lots of climbing material. There's a pool for them to swim in if they wanted to. And right now he's just kind of laying there. Looks really comfortable and confident. And earlier he was scratching up on some of the trees and walking around his enclosure. I think his welfare is really well suited for his outdoor enclosure that he has now, and I'm really satisfied with both the snow leopard and the tiger's enclosure. As to oppose the lion's enclosure, I am not as satisfied. Their outdoor enclosure is great, however, their indoor enclosure is kind of small. There is two lions in their enclosure, just right behind me here. They're both just laying down. Earlier, the male was roaring and pacing. As I said, their enclosure is really small, and I'm very dissatisfied with that. There's just not much in their enclosure. To me, it looks really barren, and honestly, I probably wouldn't want to be there. Overall, I feel like more should be done for the lion's indoor enclosure to just optimize the welfare for those two creatures. As for education, there is education everywhere at Como Zoo. It's really engaging. They have this panel where you can put your handprint on, or your handprint. You can put your hand on it, and it has an outline of a 40-year-old hand, a 5-year-old hand, a domestic cat paw print, and a tiger paw print. And I think that is really cool. Just that kids can go up, put their hand on there and be like, wow, this is how much smaller my hand is, or my hand's just as big as the tiger's paw print. And for me, just kind of thinking about if I put my hand up and let's say the tiger decided to give me a high five, that his paw would be just as big as my hand, basically. I think that's a really interesting fact and something that I really enjoyed. As for presenting their educational options as well, they do have TVs, and they have slideshows that talk about each of the cats that are here and what their normal habitats are and where they can be found in the wild. It's at a good pace so people can actually look at it, and overall I really like that they provide that instead of those plaques where it just is always the same information every time you come, while something like a slideshow you can easily change up a bit. And as for their conservation efforts, I think Como Zoo does a great job in that. It's not that they're always necessarily communicating it, but it is on their website, everything that they do. When they have guides or tours around, they talk about their conservation efforts for the animals. It's not necessarily in the educational information, which I think that's good, because not necessarily that's what the kids are wanting to learn or the people are wanting to learn at that moment, as to suppose they have it in other locations, expressing how they use their conservation efforts. But yeah, overall, I think Como Zoo is a great place. Sometimes I feel a little uncomfortable when I'm at zoos just because I am not always satisfied with how their enclosures are, like the lions one, where their inside one is extremely small. But yeah, that was my visit to the Como Zoo. Thank you.